Hey, great day. So, welcome back to the podcast. If you are a therapist, a service provider, a social worker, and you know deep down inside that you were meant for more and that you want to go beyond one on one sessions, then this episode is for you. So, today I'm kicking off a brand new series and I will be breaking down how I have built out a multi-million-dollar brand, not just with a private practice, but as a clinical psychologist that build a brand platform. And in today's episode, in part one, I am going to be walking you through the shift that I had to make internally that really changed everything. We are going to be talking about how I stopped seeing myself as just a therapist, as only a psychologist. I'm also going to be talking about how I started building a brand that would and could outgrow the room that I was sitting in. So, first things first, let's talk about the problem with you being known as just a therapist. And so, let me break it all the way down. Most therapists, most social workers, most service providers, we are therapists by our career title, right? Like we went to school, we collected all these hours, we sat for the exam, and all the things that came after and in between. And I want you to hear me very clearly. There is nothing wrong with being a therapist, a clinician. But right now, the problem is that people only see you as that, whatever your title is, whatever your acronym is. So think about it. When someone thinks of you, when your name pops up, it's more like, oh, she's a therapist. He's a psychologist. They're a social worker. And that's it. Like the sentence stops. And what they don't think about is, oh, she's a speaker. He's an educator. She's actually a great consultant. He's a great thought leader. Oh my gosh, she has a poppin' brand. And so, because of that, what happens is your income is specifically tied to your time because we are so used to only doing one on one, or we are known as the one on one provider, and that is it. And your impact by default is going to stay limited to what you can do on a caseload. And that also means that your visibility stays very small. Why? Because people associate being a therapist only to one thing: sitting in a telehealth room, virtual space, or in an office and doing therapy. So my realization came a couple of years back, now at this point, maybe a decade. So let me take you back to that point because this is where the $2 million current date brand was birthed. And so, of course, when I started in the field, I loved therapy. I still do love therapeutic services, one on one, group, and anything in between. And I very much was committed to my clients. But I also knew that something did not feel right, something did not fit. And I don't know about you, but I listened to my gut. And so I knew for sure that I did not go through all of this education, all of these years, going straight through all gas, no brakes, collecting all these hours, working for free, getting all that education, all that training, and also embracing all the things that life had for me throughout all of my learning experiences, also known as life experiences, only to sit in a room. Does that sound familiar? Or to only do my life 1 hour at a time. But I knew sitting down and brain dumping and thinking about who do I really want to become, I knew that I was called to be a teacher. I was called to speak. I was called to be a guide, a mentor. Bottom line is, I was known for myself internally that I was meant to be something bigger. But I really had to slow down, get still, and get real honest with myself. And this is what I'm asking you to do right now. So I want you to go through this process with me. I had to think to myself, if I only show up as a therapist, clinician, psychologist, I would never tap into all of my gifts. So I made a decision early on post licensure. I'm not going to build a new career. I'm going to build a brand, right? I'm going to build a brand. So I know that the word brand and even marketing has been used interchangeably, but let's just focus on brand and let me clearly define it for you. If we break it down to simple terms, a brand is how people, a group of individuals, experience you without even having to explain yourself every single time. That's it. How do they experience you? So a brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So technically, we've built a brand our entire life. You're not around and somebody mentions your name. What do people have to say about you? What do they remember about you? What do they expect from you associated with your brand? What do they come to you for, or what do people come to you for in terms of you helping them solve a problem? So now, what a brand can do for you is instead of them looking at you as, oh, you are just a therapist, it becomes, oh my gosh, she helps therapists make money. This was my brand, right? She teaches business. She's all about abundant living, first class, having the both and mentality that she can have both a popping career and a business and be a fire wife and mom, right? Like that is my brand. And what everybody tells me is she gonna tell you the truth. She gonna keep it a buck. She gonna keep it 100. Like that is the number one thing that I hear that pulls people in. That is a brand. That's how I built my brand. So you may be thinking, okay, why does all this matter? Especially if you are building and or growing, or dare I say scaling your business, which means that at some point you're going to be working less while earning more. So let's talk about why it specifically matters for you and for your future. And so think about it. Therapists, we're trained how to stay in a box. We're trained how to stay ethical, which is clearly important, right? We are trained to stay clinical. Now, that could become a problem depending on other things that you desire to do. And we're also taught to truly stay behind the scenes. But here's what happens when you start doing only those things and you put yourself in a box, you will automatically, without even knowing it, start shrinking your identity to fit within your license. I can only do this because this is what the guidelines say. And by all means, be ethical. But at the same time, it doesn't say anywhere in our ethical code that you're not allowed to tap into your other gifts, right? So I need you to hear this. Your license is a tool, just like money. Like money isn't evil. Money is a tool to get you to be able to access the things, or maybe even be able to give on a bigger scale to the things that you want to. So your license is a tool. It is not your identity. So when someone asks you what you do and the only thing you can say is your acronyms, you have already put yourself in a box. So over the years, what I have recognized very early on, and I was very grateful to be around some great people, be invited into rooms and then invest to stay in those rooms, is yes, I'm going to identify first and foremost as a licensed clinical psychologist in most rooms that I am in. Yes, I am going to follow ethical guidelines. Hands down, I'm the quality assurance queen. Yes, I am going to respect the field in which I went to school for. But see, here's the key word, and in all caps. I am also a teacher, a speaker, a business owner, a leader, and of course, I'm a wife and a mom. And once I allowed over time myself to expect that I can embrace all of those roles, I allowed myself to actually expand for the bigger question. How did you build the $2 million plus brand? I allowed myself to expand. So what happened is, because I stopped shrinking myself, I stopped only attaching just myself to the clinical psychology license, my income expanded. Therefore, who I was able to reach and touch with the information and the transformation and the problems that I solve, my impact expanded. Where at this point, your girl has reached over 40 states. I have reached over 5 countries. So my impact has definitely surpassed my initial vision. And better yet, my opportunities expanded to the point where my brand is spoken of even when I'm not in the room, when I'm not even in the state, and people pass on my name. So when it came down to me embracing the identity, I still had to make another shift. And the shift was this: I stopped asking, how do I become a better therapist? How do I become a better clinical psychologist? And I start asking what I call higher quality questions. I started asking myself, how do I become more visible in my gifts? Okay. And that is when I started creating content that was aligned with the woman I was becoming. I started speaking differently, putting on the shoes that I want to put on, putting on the smile that I want to put on, whether it's on a stage, in person, at a small event. or virtually, and I showed up and I showed out. What I used to tell my clients is I would talk when somebody would show up to my webinar, literally having a webinar for my coaching programs with 0 people, showing up to calls to interview people for programs, and it was a no-show, no email, no text, no nothing. But guess what? I still kept going. I talked to the webinar screen as though it was 1,000 people in the room. Why? Because at the end of the day, your girl is still practicing her gift. Okay. So I started showing up differently. I specifically started positioning myself beyond the one-to-one therapy sessions. And I built a name, not just in a room, not just online, not just in communities or at my old job, but in conversations. I wasn't even in the room. And that's how the name Dr. TK was actually birthed. And it became clearly bigger than life, bigger than the original title that I created. And that's when Dr. TK, the name became a brand. So if you don't take anything else from what I talked about today, I want you to take the following. You can be a therapist, clinician, and still build a brand. You can honor your license and your ethical guidelines and still expand your identity. You can help people one-on-one. Ain't nothing wrong with having a few one-on-one therapy clients and still reach and teach thousands, if not more. But it does start with a decision. And for me, my decision started with me actually being invited into a room. I will link up a previous live stream podcast that I did with one of my psychologist BFFs, a good friend of mine. She's like my sister. And we're going to share with you some stories of rooms that we sat in that actually helped me build out what I now call my brand. But I was invited into that room and sitting in silence and looking around and looking at all these people hit the stage, have a brand, and have a message that matches their brand and an impact that matches their brand. I told myself, I'm about to hit that stage. I'm going to be on that stage. I'm, matter of fact, going to be in that program so it could position me to be on that stage. I want to have a brand like that. And that is actually who I became. And that's where the name, literally in that room, Dr. TK birthed. They were teaching us about websites. I went on GoDaddy within 5 seconds because I'm an executor. I typed in, is this URL taken? I just looked at what is important for me, a website first. So I typed it in. Dr. TK, the way that I was spelling it, was available. Bet, buy, right there in the room, whatever it was, $9.99. Bought it by the time that I left the first day event. Therefore, when I'm going to the second and third day of the same event, now I have a brand in mind. So everything that they're teaching me, I'm taking it to a whole another level in terms of execution. So it starts with a decision. So I'm here telling you, stop playing small. Stop hiding behind your credentials and all those letters. I want you to start owning what is your full capacity. If you don't know it, I want you to go to the description box and I want you to sign up to get my free brag resume. Okay. That resume is positioned for you to look at your life and career and business experience, pay attention to it, and then pull out themes that will hype you up. So what we're going to talk about in part 2 of this series is I'm going to break down how I then took that brand idea, that URL, and went full throttle and start exposing the world to who Dr. TK was. I started positioning myself so that I can make myself more visible because that is marketing. And believe it or not, people buy from the brand first because they want to connect with you, especially in this day and age. They want a real person. Okay. So if this has hit you in a very positive way, in any capacity, first of all, I want you to share this episode with someone who you want to grow your brand with, like a friend. And tag me on Instagram at Dr. TK Psych so I can know that you saw this. Matter of fact, comment in the comment section, what was your biggest takeaway from me motivating you to tap into your brand beyond your credentials? But of course, stay connected. Subscribe to the channel if you like motivational content like this, in addition to some business masterclasses mixed in with some lifestyle vlogs, because I don't just teach it, I practice it. Check out the description box, because if you are actually ready to figure out what else you are meant for, then I want you to grab the brag resume for free. It doesn't cost you anything but your name and your email address, okay? And it will help you identify your gifts, even beyond the therapy space, so that you can decide how you really want to show up for opportunities to be created. All right. So I will see you in the next episode. Talk to you soon. Bye.